The world spun, and I was no longer Ethan Carter, a 28-year-old barista in Seattle who'd just finished a double shift. One moment, I was dozing off on my couch, a dog-eared fantasy novel slipping from my hands. The next, I was gasping for air, my body jerking awake in a stranger's skin. My heart pounded as I stared at unfamiliar hands calloused, tanned. Not mine, and a name echoed in my mind. Jasper Klein. Side character. Destined to die? I was in Starlit Bonds, a novel I'd read a dozen times. A queer fantasy epic set in a fictional coastal town called Havenport, Oregon. Jasper Klein was a nobody in the grand scheme of the story. A 25-year-old dockworker with a sharp tongue and a tragic fate, killed in a bar fight orchestrated by the male lead, Cashin Reed. A brooding, powerful heir to a shipping empire. My new reality hit like a tidal wave. Stay away from Cashin, or I'd be dead by chapter 12. Havenport smelled of salt and pine, its cobblestone streets bustling under a gray autumn sky. I stumbled out of Jasper's cramped attic apartment, my head swimming with his memories, late nights hauling crates at the docks, a fleeting crush on a baker named Milo, and a stubborn streak that always got him into trouble. My own memories Ethan's clung like damp clothes, urging me to run, to hide, to rewrite this doomed script. But Jasper's body moved with a confidence I didn't feel, and his voice, rougher than mine, muttered, "Get it together, man." The first test came too soon. I was weaving through the morning market, dodging fishmongers and street vendors, when a shadow loomed ahead. Cashin Reed, 6'2", all sharp jawline and storm gray eyes, stood at a stall, inspecting a crate of apples like he owned the world. My pulse spiked. In the book, Jasper's first encounter with Cashin was a spark that led to his downfall, a mix of envy and defiance that made him a target. I ducked behind a cart of pumpkins, heart hammering, and vowed to stay invisible. But Havenport was small, and fate was cruel. By noon, I was back at the docks, Jasper's job demanding I show up or starve. The air was thick with the tang of seaweed and sweat as I hefted crates under the foreman's watchful eye. Then I heard "Eat a low," commanding voice that sent ice down my spine. Cashin was there, negotiating with the dockmaster about a delayed shipment. I kept my head down, stacking boxes, but Jasper's memories betrayed me. A flash of resentment surged. Cashin's family owned half the docks, and workers like Jasper were just cogs in their machine. I bit my tongue, literally, to stop myself from snapping something reckless. "Watch it, Klein," a co-worker hissed, nodding toward Cashin. "He's in a mood today." I nodded, pretending to focus, but my eyes flicked to Cashin's silhouette against the overcast sky. He was 27, magnetic in a way that made your chest ache. But I knew better. His charm hid a ruthless streak, and I wasn't about to become his collateral damage. That night, I collapsed onto Jasper's lumpy mattress, my body aching from work I wasn't used to. Ethan's life had been coffee stains and late-night Netflix. Jasper's was splinters and survival. I stared at the cracked ceiling, plotting. The novel's timeline gave me 3 months until the bar fight. I could quit the docks, leave Havenport, vanish into the Oregon wilderness. But Jasper's meager savings laughed at that idea, and something else tugged at me. Milo, the baker. Jasper's crush wasn't in the book, a detail too small for its pages, but it felt real, vivid, a flicker of warmth in this cold new world. The next morning, I found myself outside Milo's bakery, drawn by Jasper's muscle memory. Milo Nguyen, 24, was all soft smiles and flour-dusted aprons, his dark eyes crinkling as he handed me a warm cinnamon roll. "Rough day at the docks, Jasper?" he asked, his voice like a melody. I froze, Ethan's awkwardness clashing with Jasper's easy charm. "Yeah, I managed. But this helps." His laugh was a lifeline, and for a moment, I forgot I was a dead man walking. But Cashin's shadow lingered. I spotted him across the street, talking to a merchant, his gaze sweeping the crowd. Did he see me? Did he know Jasper's role in his story? I ducked into the bakery, heart racing, and Milo raised an eyebrow. You okay? Man, you look like you saw a ghost. I forced a grin, but my mind screamed, not a ghost. A reaper. Days bled into weeks, and I learned to navigate Jasper's life. I avoided Cashin like the plague, taking longer routes to work, skipping the tavern where he held court. But Havenport's smallness made it a minefield. One evening, I was hauling a crate when Cashin's voice cut through the dusk. Klein. Right. I froze, my grip tightening on the wood. He stood too close, his eyes unreadable. Heard you're quick with numbers. We need someone to check the ledgers. It was an offer, a trap, a plot point I didn't remember from the book. I stammered, not my thing, and bolted, his low chuckle haunting me as I fled. Milo became my anchor. His bakery was a safe haven, its warmth cutting through Jasper's gritty world. We talked over coffee, his stories of growing up in Havenport clashing with Ethan's memories of Seattle's rain-soaked streets. I wanted to tell him everything transmigration. Doom. Cashin, but Jasper's pride held me back. Instead, I leaned into his feelings, letting them guide me. One night, as we closed the bakery, Milo's hand brushed mine, and my breath caught. You're different lately, he said, his voice soft. Good different. I wanted to kiss him, to rewrite Jasper's story with something worth living for. But Cashin's shadow loomed too large. By the end of the first month, I was fraying. Jasper's body was stronger than Ethan's, but the constant vigilance was exhausting. I dodged Cashin's orbit, but the plot felt alive, pulling me toward disaster. At the docks, whispers grew. Cashin was pushing for control, clashing with local merchants. Jasper's name came up in his circles, a pawn in a game I didn't understand. I needed a plan, fast, or I'd be another forgotten name in Starlet Bond's brutal narrative. The docks were a pressure cooker, and I was caught in the steam. Every creak of the wooden planks felt like a countdown to my doom, with Cashin's presence a constant threat. I'd memorized his schedule: mornings at the shipping office, evenings at the tavern, but Havenport's tight-knit streets made avoiding him a game of chess I was losing. Milo was my only reprieve. His bakery, with its scent of yeast and sugar, was a world apart from the dock's grit. One rainy afternoon, I lingered there, watching him knead dough with a focus that made my chest ache. You ever think about leaving Havenport? I asked, Jasper's voice steadier than I felt. Milo paused, wiping flour from his cheek. Sometimes. But this place, it's home. What about you? Jasper, you've been jumpy lately. His eyes searched mine, and I wanted to spill everything. Ethan. The book. My borrowed life. Instead, I shrugged. Just tired of the docks. That night, I dreamed of Ethan's life, my tiny Seattle apartment, the hum of the espresso machine, the freedom of being no one's side character. I woke to Jasper's reality, the addict's chills seeping into my bones. I had to act. Quitting the docks was my best shot. But Jasper's bank account was a sad $200, and Havenport's job market was as tight as its gossip. I started small, asking Milo about openings at the bakery. You, a baker? He grinned, tossing me an apron. Let's see what you've got. Learning to bake was a disaster. My hands, used to hauling crates, mangled dough into lumpy messes. Milo laughed, guiding my fingers with his own, his touch sparking something I hadn't felt since waking up as Jasper. You're hopeless, he teased, but his smile said otherwise. For a moment, I forgot Cashin, forgot the plot. But reality crashed back when I left the bakery and saw him, Cashin, leaning against a lamppost, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Had he followed me? Was this the book's invisible hand, pulling me into his orbit? I doubled down on avoidance. I took night shifts at the docks, hoping Cashin's daytime empire wouldn't touch me. But the plot was relentless. One evening, as I stacked crates under a flickering lantern. A coworker, a wiry guy named Sam, muttered, "Reed's asking about you. Wants you on his crew for a big shipment." My stomach dropped. In Starlet Bonds, Jasper's involvement with Cashin's business was the first step toward the fatal bar fight. "Tell him I'm not interested," I snapped, sharper than I meant. Sam raised an eyebrow. "You sure? It's good money." I shook my head, heart pounding, and threw myself into work, ignoring the whispers that followed. Milo noticed the change. Over coffee one morning, he set down his mug, his usual warmth replaced by concern. "Jasper, what's going on? You're acting like someone's after you." I wanted to tell him God. I wanted to, but how do you explain you're a fictional character dodging a scripted death? Instead, I reached for his hand. A bold move Jasper's confidence allowed. "Just stick with me, okay?" His fingers tightened around mine, and for a second, I believed I could outrun fate. But Cashin was a storm that wouldn't pass. A week later, I was cornered. I'd taken a shortcut through an alley to avoid the main street when his voice cut through the dusk. "Jasper Klein." He stepped from the shadows, his tailored coat a stark contrast to my worn jacket. "You're hard to pin down." My mouth went dry. This wasn't in the book, Cashin seeking me out this early. "Just busy," I managed, backing away. He stepped closer, his gaze dissecting me. "I need someone reliable. You're good with numbers, and I don't trust half the idiots on my payroll." His tone was casual, but I felt the plot's weight, pushing me toward a role I refused to play. "I'm fine where I am," I said, turning to leave. His hand caught my arm, not rough, but firm enough to stop me. "Think about it," he said, his voice low, almost sincere. "You could do better than the docs." I yanked free, my heart a drumbeat, and walked away, his eyes burning into my back. That night, I lay awake, Jasper's memories mixing with Ethan's panic. Cashin wasn't just the male lead, was a force, and I was a speck in his story. Milo became my reason to keep going. We spent evenings in the bakery's backroom, sharing stories under the hum of fluorescent lights. He talked about his dreams opening a second shop, maybe in Portland, and I clung to his optimism, letting it drown out the novel's shadow. One night, as we cleaned up, he leaned close, his breath warm against my cheek. "Jasper, you're more than this town," he whispered. I kissed him then, a desperate, reckless act that felt like defying the book itself. His lips were soft, his hands steady, and for that moment, I was alive, not just surviving. But the plot didn't care about my heart. The next day, Sam cornered me at the docks. "Reed's not happy you turned him down," he said, his voice low. "He's got eyes on you now." Fear coiled in my gut. In Starlet Bonds, Cashin's attention was a death sentence. I had to move fast or find a way out of Havenport, out of Jasper's life, before the bar fight found me. Time was slipping through my fingers like sand. 2 months into Jasper's life, and the weight of Starlet Bonds pressed harder. Havenport's charm, its salty air, its cozy streets felt like a cage, every corner a potential trap. Cashin's interest in me was a deviation from the book, a glitch that made my survival feel less certain. I threw myself into a plan. Milo's bakery offered a sliver of hope, part-time work that could replace the docks. I wasn't great at baking, but I was learning, and Milo's patience was endless. "You're getting the hang of it," he said one morning, laughing as I finally shaped a decent loaf. His hand lingered on mine, and I let myself imagine a life where Jasper wasn't doomed, where Ethan could build something real. But Cashin's shadow loomed, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every step I took was scripted. The docks were a battlefield. I kept my head down, working odd hours, but Cashin's presence was inescapable. He'd show up unannounced, inspecting shipments or talking to the dockmaster, his eyes always finding me. Once, he caught me alone, leaning against a crate. "You're wasting your potential, Klein," he said, his voice smooth but edged with something I couldn't place. Join my crew. You'd be set. I shook my head, muttering an excuse. But his gaze lingered, like he saw something in Jasper I didn't. It wasn't attraction, it was calculation. And that scared me more. Milo sensed my fear, though I never named it. One evening, as we walked along Havenport's rocky beach, he stopped, the waves crashing behind him. Jasper, you're carrying something heavy. Talk to me. His sincerity cracked something in me. I wanted to confess I am not Jasper. I'm Ethan. I'm living a story that ends with my death, but the words stuck. Instead, I pulled him close, kissing him under the fading light. Just stay with me, I said, echoing my earlier plea. He nodded, but his eyes held questions I couldn't answer. The plot tightened its grip. At the docks, rumors swirled. Cashin was clashing with a rival merchant, Victor Hayes, over control of Havenport's trade. In the book, this feud sparked the bar fight that killed Jasper, a senseless casualty in Cashin's power play. I started eavesdropping, piecing together details. Victor was ruthless, a wild card the book barely mentioned, and Cashin's push for dominance was escalating. I overheard Sam talking about a meeting at the tavern, one Jasper was supposed to attend in the novel. I swore I'd never set foot there. But Havenport had other plans. Milo, oblivious to the danger, invited me to the tavern for a community fundraiser. It's for the local school, he said, his eyes bright. Come on, Jasper. It'll be fun. I hesitated, the book's timeline screaming in my head. But his smile was impossible to resist. I went, sticking to the edges, scanning for Cashin. The tavern was alive with laughter and clinking glasses. But tension simmered. Victor's men were there, eyeing Cashin's crew across the room. I stayed close to Milo, his warmth grounding me. We danced, his hand on my waist. And for a moment, I forgot the plot. But then I saw him, Cashin, at the bar. His eyes locked on me. My stomach twisted. I excused myself, muttering about fresh air, and slipped outside. The night was cold, the stars sharp above Havenport. I leaned against the tavern wall, catching my breath, when a voice startled me. Running again. Klein. Cashin stood there, a half-smile on his lips. You're not as invisible as you think. My heart raced. I don't want trouble, I said, stepping back. He tilted his head, studying me. Trouble finds you, doesn't it? Stick with me, and I can keep it at bay. It sounded like a promise, but I knew better. Cashin's protection came with strings. I shook my head and walked away, his low laugh following me into the dark. Back inside, Milo found me, his brow furrowed. You okay? I nodded, but the lie tasted bitter. The night ended without incident, but the book's climax was closing in. I had to leave Havenport, take Milo with me, anything to break free. The next day, I scrounged every cent Jasper had, calculating bus fares to Portland. It wasn't enough for two, and the thought of leaving Milo behind gutted me. But staying meant death, and I wasn't ready to give up. That evening, Milo caught me counting coins at the bakery. Jasper, what's this? He asked, his voice soft but firm. I froze, caught between Ethan's fear and Jasper's stubbornness. I'm thinking of leaving, I admitted, avoiding his eyes. His silence was deafening. Without me? He finally asked, hurt lacing his words. I wanted to tell him everything, but the truth was a wall I couldn't climb. Instead, I kissed him, pouring every unsaid word into it, hoping he'd understand. The clock was ticking, and Havenport felt like a noose tightening around my neck. I had less than a month before the bar fight that would end Jasper Klein's life, and every choice I made seemed to pull me closer to it. My plan to leave was crumbling. Jasper's savings were pitiful, and Milo's hurt expression haunted me. I couldn't abandon him, but staying meant facing Cashin's growing obsession and the novel's relentless plot. I doubled down at the bakery, taking every shift Milo offered. The work was grueling but safe, far from the docks where Cashin's influence loomed. Milo taught me to pipe frosting, his hands steadying mine as we decorated cupcakes. You're getting better, he said, his smile soft but tinged with worry. I hadn't told him about leaving again, but the unspoken tension between us grew. Every touch, every laugh felt like a countdown to a goodbye I didn't want. Cashin, though, was a storm I couldn't outrun. He started showing up near the bakery, always with a plausible excuse buying bread. Meeting a supplier, but his eyes always found me. One afternoon, as I swept the shop's front, he leaned against the counter, all casual confidence. You're wasted here, Jasper, he said, his voice low. I could use someone like you. I gripped the broom, Ethan's panic clashing with Jasper's defiance. I'm good, I said, turning away. He didn't push, but his presence lingered like smoke. The docs weren't done with me either. Sam cornered me one morning, his face grim. Reed's pissed you're dodging him. Says you're disrespecting him. My blood ran cold. In Starlit Bonds, Jasper's defiance was what got him noticed. What made him a target? I just want to do my job, I said, but Sam shook his head. You don't get it, man. Cashin doesn't let go. That night, I scrawled a plan in Jasper's notebook, save enough for 2 bus tickets, convince Milo to leave, disappear before the tavern scene. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. Milo was my lifeline, but he was also my weakness. One evening, as we closed the bakery, he pulled me into the back room, his eyes searching mine. Jasper, you're scaring me. You're here, but you're not. His voice cracked, and my resolve wavered. I wanted to tell him about Ethan, about the book, but fear stopped me. Instead, I cupped his face, kissing him with a desperation that said what I couldn't. I'm trying to protect you, I whispered. He frowned, confused, but didn't push. We held each other in the quiet, the world outside plotting my end. The plot's momentum was unstoppable. At the docks, Victor Hayes' men started showing up, their presence a spark in the powder keg of Cashin's feud. I overheard them planning some Thinga shipment sabotage, a move to cripple Cashin's empire. In the book, this was the prelude to the bar fight, and Jasper was caught in the crossfire. I stopped going to the docks altogether, calling in sick, but the foreman wasn't happy. You're on thin ice, Klein, he growled over the phone. I didn't care. Staying alive trumped everything. Milo noticed my absence from the docks. You quit? He asked one night, his voice hopeful. I nodded, not meeting his eyes. Trying to start over. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. With me? He asked, and my heart broke. I wanted to say yes, to promise him a future, but the book's shadow loomed too large. Instead, I pulled him close, letting his warmth anchor me for one more night. Cashin's next move blindsided me. I was leaving the bakery when a sleek black car pulled up, and he stepped out, his expression unreadable. Get in, he said, not a request. My instincts screamed to run, but Jasper's stubbornness kicked in. Why? I demanded. He sighed, almost human. We need to talk. About Victor. My stomach twisted. This was new. Off script. Dangerous. Against my better judgment. I got in, the leather seats cold against my skin. He drove us to a cliff overlooking the Pacific, the same one I'd imagined with Milo in a different life. Victor's planning something, Cashin said, staring at the horizon. And you're caught in it. My blood ran cold. I'm nobody, I said, but he shook his head. Not to him. Not to me. His words were a puzzle, and I hated how they stirred something in me. Jasper's defiance, Ethan's curiosity. I was slipping, and the plot was winning. That night, I told Milo everything, not the transmigration, but the danger, the feud, my need to leave. His face crumpled, but he nodded. Then we go together, he said, his voice firm. I wanted to believe it was possible, but the book's ending loomed, and I wasn't sure I could rewrite it. The final weeks were a sprint against fate. I had $400 saved, enough for one bus ticket to Portland. But Milo refused to let me go alone. "We're a team, Jasper," he said, his eyes fierce. I wanted to believe him, to carve out a life where we could be free. But Starlet Bonds was a machine, and I was a cog about to be crushed. Cashin's warning about Victor gnawed at me. I didn't trust him, but his words rang true. Victor's men were circling, their presence at the docks heavier each day. I stayed away, sticking to the bakery. But Havenport's smallness made invisibility impossible. One night, as I locked up the shop, I saw a figure watching from across the street, one of Victor's men, his face half hidden in shadow. My heart raced. The bar fight was days away in the book's timeline, and I could feel its pull. Milo and I made a plan: leave Havenport the next night, pool our money, start over in Portland. It was reckless, but it was hope. We spent the day together, packing essentials in his tiny apartment, our hands brushing as we folded clothes. "This is crazy," he said, laughing, but his eyes were bright with possibility. I kissed him, letting myself believe we could outrun the plot. But deep down, Ethan's fear whispered, "You're not the main character." That evening, everything unraveled. We were at the bus station, bags slung over our shoulders, when Cashin appeared, his face a mix of anger and something softer. "You're leaving?" he asked, his voice low. I froze, Milo's hand tightening in mine. "Yeah," I said, Jasper's defiance steadying me. "This town's not for me." Cashin's jaw clenched. "You're making a mistake. Victor's men are watching you." My blood ran cold, but I shook my head. "That's your fight, not mine." He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. "You're more than you think, Jasper." For a moment, I saw the Cashin from the book's quieter chapters, the one who loved fiercely but destroyed everything in his path. I pulled Milo toward the bus, my heart pounding, but Cashin's voice followed. "You can't outrun this." We didn't make it to Portland. Halfway to the station's exit, Victor's men blocked our path, 3 of them, their faces hard. "Klein," one growled, "you've been sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." My stomach dropped. This wasn't the bar fight, but it was close. A deviation that felt just as deadly. Milo stepped in front of me, his voice steady. "Back off." I grabbed his arm, pulling him back, but the men advanced. What happened next was a blur. Cashin appeared, his presence a storm, and words were exchanged sharp, heated, incomprehensible. A fist flew, then another, and I shoved Milo behind me, my body moving on instinct. A knife glinted, and I braced for the end. But Cashin tackled the man, the blade skittering across the pavement. Sirens wailed in the distance, and Victor's men scattered, leaving us gasping in the cold night air. Cashin turned to me, his face bloodied but calm. "Go," he said, nodding toward the bus. "Now." I didn't question it. I grabbed Milo's hand, and we ran, boarding the bus as it pulled away. Havenport shrank in the rearview mirror, and I clung to Milo, his warmth the only thing keeping me grounded. In Portland, we started over. Milo found work at a cafe, and I took odd jobs, Jasper's skills blending with Ethan's determination. The book's shadow faded, but I never forgot its lesson. Fate could be fought, but only if you dared to rewrite it. Cashin's role in our escape haunted Minute, the villain I'd expected, but a man caught in his own story, just as I was. Years later, Milo and I stood on a cliff in Big Sur, the Pacific stretching endless before us. He leaned against me, his hand in mine, and I felt the weight of 2 lives, Ethan's and Jasper, merge into one. "We made it," he whispered. I nodded, my eyes on the horizon, knowing I'd defied a story that tried to bury me. Love, not fate, had won.